All right. Good morning, guys. On today's show, a former airline pilot and social media live expert, Lynn Costa. Hey, Lynn, how's it
Hey there.
going?
Great. How's it going?
It's going excellent. And thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I haven't done interviews in a while, so it's always fun to get to talk about what you're excited about most.
Yes, absolutely. So we will go ahead and hop right into it. If you
Awesome.
want, you can go ahead and just kind of explain to us, how did this even get started? You're an airline pilot and now a social media expert?
That's right. So actually, it started back in I think 2008, 2009 when I'm not an airline pilot anymore, by the way, but that was my formal training through college was aviation. It was my dream job. It was something I always wanted to do was fly a jet, work for an airline, become an airline captain. During that time period, I was very fortunate where I had usually about half the month off as far as the work schedule is concerned. And so I didn't want to be unproductive with that time. And I wanted to be able to utilize it to start a business and create wealth and create assets and stuff for myself. But given that particular lifestyle, I realized that I also didn't want to have a local business, for instance, a restaurant or a storefront or something that would require me to always be going back somewhere and showing up every day and flipping the hamburgers or greeting the customers, right? So the transition to wanting to have an online business made sense to me because I could fly the jet during the day and I could manage my online business from my hotel room in the evenings on my days off, etc. And it really, it started me on a whole journey. It's funny because at that time I was actually really in love with real estate investing. And so my first online business was a 10-week real estate investing training series that I delivered via webinar. And this was back again in like 2008, 2009. And I absolutely had no idea what I was doing, but made a bunch of money in a short amount of time. And I was like, all right, so this online thing works, right? And then I was like, all right, so what if I keep doing stuff that I'm like really interested in? So I sort of transitioned that into an aviation blog, which was all about aviation software product reviews. And the funny thing about that is I didn't have the idea at the time, but the iPhone had just come out and you could buy like a 99-cent app on the App Store that would make fart sounds. But for pilots, like these apps were literally $100. And I was like, well, what if I take some time to actually like review this software, review these aviation products and kind of add some value to the marketplace? Because again, being so new to the iPhone and the iTunes store, you couldn't buy a product, use it, and then ask for a refund. Like that just wasn't a part of the iTunes app purchasing process then. So that's again how I started, that was my second thing. And it really got me involved with a lot more video stuff. Because I was doing product reviews and I was doing, literally app demonstrations, walkthroughs way back in the day when we didn't have any of this screen sharing stuff. I would literally have like a handheld camcorder hovering over my phone and then editing all these pieces together afterwards, which was really cool. But that ended up like morphing into an aviation podcast, which was a lot of fun. I'm not even sure where or why I came up with that idea. But I had a couple of different people from different backgrounds in aviation. Like I was an airline captain. Another guy was an airline captain. Then we had somebody who was pursuing the middle portion of their flight training, and then somebody who was doing the beginning part. So we had like all these varying levels of expertise. So our conversations were very diverse and dynamic, and it grew so quick to becoming one of the top aviation podcasts in the country. So.
Wow.
It was basically just doing stuff and learning all this stuff. But I eventually, like I mentioned, I'm not an airline pilot anymore. I eventually decided to quit that career because what's funny? When you reach a goal and you're like, all right, what's next? That's kind of what happened for me. Like I was working for an airline. I was flying a jet. I was a captain. And I was like, okay, I think at the time I was 30 or 31. I said, I've reached all these goals. Really, the only next thing for me in aviation is to fly a bigger plane, longer distances, or across the world. And I'm like, I don't really need to do that, right? It's kind of to some degree, it's kind of the same job I'm doing now. It's just longer flights and bigger airplanes. And I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go all in with my entrepreneur stuff. So I actually quit that job in 2014. And the girlfriend and I traveled the world for over a year, and I got about a month into it before I was like, I need to get online again. I need another online business. I need to do something because I have too much free time. So I got into drop shipping and consulting. And again, we were putting out all kinds of content via video. Everything I did was video. So recently somebody says to me, in fact, you probably know him, Russell Brunson. He says to me, he's like, look, Len, why don't you focus on this video stuff? Like, you've been doing this for so long, you know all about this video stuff. I was like, okay. So a few months ago, I started diving deep into that and really figuring out what people needed help with and what they wanted to learn, and just starting down that journey. So there's been a lot of these, because we had talked offline about being able to turn your passion into a business online. And it's been, like I said, since about 2008, time and time and time again, just going and going and finding something new that excites me and really learning. Now, each phase of that, I wouldn't call myself a failure, but there were certain things I was not good at during each phase, like the real estate stuff. I wasn't really good at seeing the long-term picture. And then the real estate, after the real estate stuff was the aviation stuff. And I couldn't quite figure out how to monetize it. And then through the e-commerce and the consulting, some of the stuff all started to fall into place. And then like now I kind of feel like I'm in the right place at the right time with all of my experience and my knowledge, and able to kind of put these pieces to the puzzle together. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been in a lot of different businesses and learned a whole lot and done a whole lot and made a whole lot of money. And I wouldn't change anything for the world, to be honest.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I find that a lot of people see themselves as, like a professional and like a high status kind of job. Mm-hmm. Only to find that when you get there, it's like, man, okay, so this is it. And with entrepreneurship, it never stops. Like, you could work every minute till the day you die, and still there's always new obstacles to overcome. And something that I really love about you that really caught my eye was the Facebook Lives, because it's so hard to find those. I wouldn't say it's so hard, and especially with your expertise and stuff like that, kind of testing here and doing this there. It's like, what is your blue ocean going to be? Because, everybody's in this online space and they're like, I can help you with email marketing and this, and those are great. But when I saw Facebook Live, I'm like, yes, like everybody needs to know about this. And you are the first live expert I've come across.
That's great.
Yes. So with so you kind of like went through your novice stage and dabbled in a couple of different things. Now that you're doing this live kind of journey, what has been your biggest obstacle, or like getting the stone pushed uphill?
Yeah, that's interesting. At first, it was trying to put the pieces together to find out what kind of, like, how to structure a product. And so you have to engage with people. You have to have a dialogue with people. You have to talk to people and find out what are their struggles, what are their fears, what are their concerns, and then start to organize your program, your products, your services, your training around those things. So for me, it was never a guess. I knew I was going to be sort of taking this live video movement by storm, if you will. But when I first started, the path wasn't clear as to what I would be teaching. But by having those conversations, it became very evident that, like, you could see these recurring themes of people feel this way, people struggle with this, people need help with that. And so I just decided, okay, well, this is the order that I'll do it in. This is the order that makes sense for structuring it. Like, if you were to start from the beginning, and just started laying the foundations and writing out the slides and recording the videos. But from there, like, okay, great. Now you have a product, but now you have to sell it, right? And so one of the things that I've been doing is really, again, going back to what I did in 2008 with webinars, is coming back to webinars and learning how to apply all of that messaging to something that's attractive, that compels people to come and join the web class or the webinar and stay during that process, give them those shifts in belief and understanding, and show them how and why your product and service and offer can help them. So we started doing that in the summer, and I was like, all right, I suck at this, actually. Like, my messaging is way off, like, as much as you still screw stuff up. So we took it down and we went through this whole new, the whole process of sort of reframing it. And that's when I most recently figured out, because I was focused around the technical stuff at first. And it's one of those things, like we hear about, don't get stuck in the techno babble or the mumbo jumbo. People aren't, like, they're not going to pay attention. They're not going to get it. So I had to, like, back up and say, okay, what are we doing here? How are we helping people? And that's when the idea of what I think what most people are looking for is to stand out in their marketplace. Most people want to be that trusted advisor. Some want to be an expert. Some want to be a guru. Most of us just want to have the power that comes with authority, right? The influence and the persuasion that comes with being an authority figure. For me, I don't actually feel as if I'm a guru. I don't actually like the word expert. For me, I feel more of like an adventurer or a crusader, where like I'm just the guy that goes out and tries a whole bunch of stuff and then sees what's working and then comes back and shares it, right? Because I'm nobody special. I'm an airline pilot that decided to work online. I don't have any advanced degrees. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a certified in any sort of technology. I'm just a guy who does stuff, sees what works, and then tries to boil it down to the simplest points that I can help other people, like teach to them and help them implement that stuff. So that's kind of more my personality, where I just like to kind of figure things out and help people along the way.
Would you say that that's one of the skills that you would attribute to your success, the ability to take complicated stuff and condense it and simplify it?
I think so. And I was actually having a conversation last week with another airline pilot, and I believe probably, like, if you were to look at how all the experience and all the jobs and things I've done in life, I honestly believe that aviation has its foothold in my success, because twofold. As I came up in that world, one of the jobs that I had was as a certified flight instructor, teaching other people how to fly airplanes. Like people, for instance, yourself, like you've never touched an airplane, you've never been in a small airplane, you've never touched the flight controls, and I take you from zero to where you're able to fly the airplane by yourself without the instructor in there, and then you get your license, etc. So those core fundamentals of teaching were built into my education background. I think that's the first thing. And really, I think the second thing is that aviation taught me was how to deal with risk. All right. Because at the end of the day, when I screw up online, nobody dies. But if I screw up in an airplane, it could be a catastrophic mess, right? So now I look at it, I'm like, well, I have no fear of doing all these things because nobody's going to die when I do something online, right? So it's just a different level of risk that I'm accustomed to.
Oh, wow. Yep. You make a good point. And so going through dabbling and stuff like that, I mean, did you ever start to lose momentum? Were you ever self-doubt? Like, did I choose the right niche? And were you finding people easily that were interested in what you were trying to do? Like when you discuss, like asking people, like testing your market and stuff like that, were you able to find a market easily?
With the video stuff, maybe a little bit more than some of the other businesses, because of just, I think, being at a higher level of network right now, where I know a heck of a lot more people, and you have a lot, like back in the day, you didn't have all these Facebook groups, you didn't know all these people, so you were kind of just doing stuff and sharing it on social media and YouTube, and like very manually having to push your content out there. Where now, if you can have these dialogues with, like how you and I met, like can't even remember now. I've met so many people in the last few weeks, but generally starts with some sort of interaction in a Facebook group that leads to becoming friends with one another, and some sort of dialogue behind scenes. We're just getting to know each other's businesses and seeing how we can help each other. And having the ability to do that and ask, that's basically where I was able to ask people those questions, is through some of these masterminds in these groups. And even so, again, on Facebook with all the groups, you can literally join a whole bunch of groups that are similar to your product or your niche or your marketplace. And again, just watch the conversations and start taking notes and saving all the different things people say that they're struggling with or they need help with, and the questions. And again, it just all kind of filters into place and gives you all of the content, all the ideas and everything that you need. So it's a lot easier to find the information. And I think that in this day and age, it's definitely a lot easier to get started online because the tools are simple. You and I use a lot of the same, and like even just like Be Live, the tools are there to break down the barrier, to make it very simple for us to do things. What I find though is different now is because the tools are simple and the barrier is so low, so many people are in this world, and now it's becoming very noisy, right? And especially when you go on Facebook, depending on what you see, it can get very distracting. You're scrolling through your feed and there's just, we'll just call it noise, right? So the new phase here is, again, and that's kind of why I like this, using these new technologies and these tools to position ourselves as an authority helps us stand out. Plus it helps us get our personality out there. Like, cause you said to me, like that's kind of how you found me, was through my live video. You liked my energy, you liked my personality on camera. well, if I hadn't done whatever it was that I did that you saw, we wouldn't be here today. So it's, it's all out there and available, but we need to, now figure out how can we stand out from the crowd, which that's, as far as competition is concerned, that's always been a factor in business. But I think now more than ever, especially online, we need to just be our authentic self so that we can attract those dream customers into our world.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up authority. And before we wrap it up, it's so funny because we did meet through a Facebook group, of a software that we both use. And as soon as I clicked on your profile to check out who you were and I saw Tony Robbins, I was like, what? And then you're like casually saying, yeah, when I talked to Russell Brunson, he had mentioned, I'm like, so you have mastered establishing authority more than anybody I have met recently. And so like cool. how are you meeting Russell Brunson and doing all sorts of things like that?
So some of it you genuinely have to pay for. For instance, the example with Russell is I joined his mastermind. So I've been in his inner circle where I get to basically spend time working, to some degree one-on-one with him. And through this process, again, like the journey with that is, again, when somebody else, he was able to look at my business and look at my scenario and look at the situation and say, you should pivot and do this. So sometimes you do have to pay to participate in these groups. And I don't really have a problem with that because you get a lot out of it. But for example, like with the Tony Robbins, I was at a live event that Russell put on, and as a sort of a perk of being in his inner circle, we got to hang out and meet, well, not even really hang out, but meet Tony Robbins and have a picture afterwards, right? Same thing with the photo that I have with Todd Brown and Akbar Sheikh and Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, if it hadn't been for these environments where all these people were gathering, I wouldn't have, you have to go to events, right? This is how you kind of meet these people. So truth is, and I'm sure that you're aware of this, but I'm obviously not best friends with Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk or Todd Brown or, some of these people. But having the ability to meet them and have that picture with them, like you said, it does help establish one's authority as this person is important, right? This person at least is important enough to be able to have access to these other people and have a photo opportunity with them. So a lot of it has come from just paying for going to events and paying for being part of masterminds and different opportunities along the way. And it's kind of funny, and I wasn't really big into this before, but I do see that a lot of people that I've been paying attention to over the last year who want to take their game to the next level, who want to elevate themselves, it's about, you either have to pay to become that person's customer so that you can become closer to them and start having that relationship, or join their high-level mastermind or whatever it is, wherever they're hanging out. And a lot of times it requires just investing in being part of those communities.
Yes, I totally agree. I invested in a program before and then it didn't work out well. And I was like, I can just figure it out by myself. And then I learned very quickly that maybe that program just wasn't the best, because learning by yourself is a lot more expensive. And, of course, you waste your most valuable asset, which is time. So that's a great point. Would you say that you could tell that was a major changing point in your career when you started investing in these kind of resources?
To some degree, yes and no, because over the last 10 years, I've always been reading books, listening to podcasts, buying courses. The difference, I think, during some of those earlier years was not so much the knowledge and the learning that I had, but in fact, actually taking action and implementing the stuff that we learned. Because I think one of the things that happens to many of us is that whole paralysis of analysis, right? We love to learn, we love to consume, we love to read everything and immerse ourselves. But often, myself included, we forget to actually use the information that we've learned and put it into effect and take action, right?
Absolutely.
One of the things I think that I learned the most out of this is just realizing that it's never going to be the perfect time in your life to start a business, to have a family, to get married. It's, nothing is ever perfect, but the best thing you can do is start today, start building an audience, start building some sort of network where people begin to know you and get to know you, like you, and trust you. And even if you're not 100% sure what you want to do, at least starting and taking that first step actually helps to kind of breed some clarity and help you figure out the situation. It's funny because when I get confused about what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm like, I don't know, what should I do today? Okay, well, I'll just focus on this. And once I start to actually give myself some direction, then the picture becomes clearer. And if you want to kind of tie this aviation analogy into it, an airplane takes off from its point of departure and lands at its destination. And when it's flying, there's wind, there's weather, there's all kinds of things we have to do to deviate and get around. But all we do is make corrections. We correct our course. So we always know that we're going to get to our destination. Well, that's the same thing with business. If we start, it's never going to be a path that we think we're going to take, but we're just going to start and we're going to make these little course corrections along the way. And at the end of the day, month, year, lifetime, whatever, we should have gotten to our destination. As long as we're paying attention to how we're correcting our course, and as long as we're actually learning from our mistakes. And I think that's probably one of the last things I can say is, I heard this actually kind of made me laugh. I was like, that's what I've been doing for so long. I didn't even realize it. But some people think you win or you fail, where the difference is you either win or you learn, right? So when you win, you get what you want. When you don't win, you learn the lesson, the skill, whatever, to take you to the next step. And that's kind of how the last 10 years have worked for me. Is those mistakes weren't mistakes or disasters, but they were opportunities for me to take a moment and figure out, what did I do wrong, or how can I make it better? And as I've learned and learned and learned, that's really, that's it. That's how it works. It is that simple. Read a few things, start implementing, correct your course as you go, and make sure you learn from the things you screw up. It's really not all that difficult, to be completely honest. I'm sure you can attest to that.
Oh, absolutely. And, and those are simple principles. And I find that the fundamental simple principles are the ones that, stick long term. Yeah, Lynn, I appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much for being on the show and all your valuable advice. Let me tell everybody, you guys can find Lynn at Live Video Sales and Authority Mastermind. I highly recommend it. The group is amazing. Lynn gives out so much value. And again, I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Lynn, I'll catch you later.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.